Okay, so now let us move on to the next talk by Kamini ji. Kamini ji, are you ready? We
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Kamini ji participated in Indica's events earlier also. She is a project consultant and associate member of COJS SOVAS, London, UK. Her present topic is Rajadharma in Somadeva's Niti Vakyamrita, a Jain synthesis of statecraft and ethics. And she, one minute, is the recipient of Kutch Shakti National Award 2013, holds PhD in philosophy, especially Jainism, and avid marathon runner with Run India Run and travel enthusiast. Her specialization includes consciousness studies, mysticism, bhakti, prakriti, Prakrit, Buddhism, Jainism, and Shaivism. She is currently a project consultant on the project Jain uh, prosopography at SOAS Jain Center, London. She is also head of research in ancient scriptures at ICOM Resonance Foundation. She is also an advisor consultant for an OTT platform on Jainism. She is also an executive member of the Scholars Committee Jain Agam Mission Uvassa Gaharam Sadhana Trust. She is on the board of the Center for Indian Studies, Al Zahara University, Tehran, Iran. She has received the Indic Academy Fellowship for 2020-21. She also is associated with the German government for evolving interfaith-based laws. She is involved with the various projects with the Professor Anna Vallely, Canada, University of Ottawa. She is jointly working on various projects with the Professor Tanim from Bangladesh. Um, Professor Tanim was in one of our events also from Bangladesh. So Professor Tanim from Bangladesh and Professor Vimal from Sri Lanka on Jainism and Buddhism. Also a part of Interfaith Dialogue, HWPL, South Korea as an expert on Jainism. She is visiting faculty for MA Philosophy and MA History at Mumbai University, India. She has been invited to Canada, USA, South Korea, UK, Belgium for conferences and lectures. She has published more than 20 articles in nationally and internationally, along with articles in Indic Today. She has initiated the Igniting Mind Foundation for Youth Leadership and works for women empowerment in rural India. As a philosophical counselor, yeah, this word philosophical counseling is becoming gradually popular. Professor Vijay Devarkonda from uh, I think Professor Devarkonda from Delhi University also is working on philosophical counseling. As a philosophical counselor, she is determined to bring out a much needed change in people, especially in relation to emotional health and its relation to cognitive development. Wow, great profile. So, Kamini please go ahead. This is the only paper in the whole symposium covering Jain aspects of statecraft, governance, and leadership. Please go ahead.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Nagaraj, and for this introduction and inviting me for this symposium, and as well as the Indic Academy. The purpose to bring this ahead that in Jainism, there was a lot of interaction of monks, ascetic community, and the political authority. So there was a great interaction. Now I am referring to a text Somdev Suri's Niti Vakyamruta around 11th century. So of course the basis is going to be the Jain moral ethical compass, but let us see what he has to say. He And I have done a little bit of comparison with Kautilya's Arthashastra, the Dharma Shastra, and I don't mean it is just for an academic purpose. The discourse on kingship has occupied a central place in Indian political philosophy from Vedic period to the medieval scholastic traditions. The king, as both the wielding authority of coercive power and uphold of dharma, embodies a paradox. He must be powerful enough to maintain the order, yet restrained enough to prevent tyranny. Classical Indian texts approach these tensions in a different way. The Arthashastra of Kautilya foregrounds statecraft and pragmatic strategies of governance, often privileging expediency over morality. The Dharma Shastras, such as Manusmriti and Yajnavalkya Smriti, highlighting the king's role as guardian of Dharma, but within a Vedic religious framework. Buddhist thought introduces the notion of Dharma Raja, a ruler whose legitimacy derives adherence to righteousness as epitomized by Emperor Ashoka's inscriptions. Within this intellectual landscape, Jain thinkers developed their own reflections on governance. Jainism, with its foundational commitment to ahimsa, aparigraha, and anekantvad, appears at first sight to be distant from the pragmatics of kingship. Yet Jain communities, particularly from the early medieval period onward, were deeply embedded in political context as advisors, ministers, and teachers to the rulers. Consequently, Jain philosophers articulated distinctive vision of Raj Dharma, the duty of king, interpreting the practical demands of governance through the ethical lens of Jain philosophy. Somdev Suri's Niti Vakyamrut, 11th century, around 11th century AD, is one of the most remarkable contribution to this Jain discourse on politics. Apart from this Niti Vakyamrut, Hemchandracharya around this period has written Arhan Niti also. So basically, there are only in the Jain tradition there are these two texts on the leadership, political leadership. A scholar of Jain tradition, particularly belonging to the Shvetambar tradition, he composed this text as a compendium of subhashitas for rulers, ministers, and lay people. As the title suggests, Niti Vakyamruta, the nectar of sayings on ethics and polity, the work is not merely a manual of governance, but a moral treatise, blending the pragmatic insights of Niti Shastra with Jain ethical commitments. In this, Somdev outlines the qualities of an ideal king, the responsibilities of governance, the administration of justice, the ethics of taxation and wealth, and the cautious use of war and diplomacy. At the heart of this text lies a sustained attempt to reconcile Niti, practical statecraft, with Dharma, ethical and spiritual values. Somdev's vision of kingship may be characterized as one of stewardship rather than sovereignty. The king is not the master of the realm, but is trustee, Dharmapala, entrusted with the protection of subject and maintenance of justice. In one of the verses, 1.12, he says, Raja, Praja, Rakshanartho na swartha parigraha, Dharma eva mahipalaha sarvasya jagataha patiha. The king exists for the protection of his subject, not for the pursuit of self-interest. Dharma alone is a true ruler, the lord of the entire world. This statement encapsulates the philosophical core of Somdev's political thought. Sovereignty belongs not to the king, but to Dharma. The ruler is legitimate only when he serves as an instrument of that higher order. This Jain articulation of Raja Dharma raises profound philosophical questions. Can political necessity, artha, be harmonized with ethical universality, dharma? Can power, inherently coercive, be reconciled with non-violence, the highest Jain ideal? Somdev's answer is affirmative but nuanced. Power is legitimate only when disciplined by self-restraint, Sanyam, justice, nyaya, and compassion, karuna. The ruler may use force, but only as a last resort and never beyond necessity. Wealth may be collected, but not only through just taxation, never exploitation. Ministers and spies may be employed, but their function may be subordinate to the ethical purpose. In framing this vision, Somdev draws from earlier Niti Shastra tradition but reorients them through a Jain lens. While Kautilya valorizes conquest and cunningness, Somdev insists on justice and non-violence. While Manu grounds kingship in Vedic authority, Somdev grounds it in universal dharma accessible to all beings. His text thus exemplifies what may be called a Jain political philosophy of trusteeship in a vision which sovereignty is always ethically contingent and in which the welfare of all beings defines the purpose of governance. It is only the purpose is to take this example of comparison is where those texts weigh more weightage is according to their conception of dharma. The objective of paper was first to explicate Somdev's conception of Rajadharma as articulated in Niti Vakyamrut. Second, to situate this conception is comparative dialogue with other traditions of Indian political thought, notably Arthashastra, Dharma Shastra, and the Buddhist notion of Dharma Raja. Third, to analyze the political significance of Somdev's synthesis of Niti and Dharma, highlighting how to contribute in broader debates about the reconciliation of power and ethics. And it is, of course, based on the two texts which I have gone through. Both are in Hindi. Somdev has written in Sanskrit, but the Hindi translations are available. So, as I said, he was an Acharya. Somdev was, of course, an Acharya Jain monk living around 11th century AD. And he has also there is one of the other text which he has authored, which is the Yashash Tilaka Champu, also a narrative come philosophical text. And the second is the Niti Vakyamruta. So, also, as I've already mentioned, that the state and the ascetics were in hand right from, from since the time of the Tirthankaras, because Tirthankars themselves were Kshatriyas. And so the state and religion in Jainism, you can see it goes hand in hand. The Niti Vakyamrut structure and themes. The Nectar of Sayings on Polity and Ethics is a compendium of maxims and reflections on kingship, administration, justice, and moral conducts. The text is composed in Sanskrit, predominantly in verse form, though with occasional prose passages. Its style aligns with Subhashita tradition of moral aphorisms, yet it systematically organizes to cover major concerns of governance. And there are 32 prakaranas in this text. And, it's just conceptually, I have organized it. Rajadhikar, qualities of ideal king, duties of sovereignty, balance between authority and humility. Mantra Adhyaya, the selection, character, and responsibility of ministers and councillors. Nyaya Prakaran, the importance of impartiality, the regulation of punishment, the principle of justice, which must align with dharma. Artha Prakarana, of wealth and taxation, guidelines for it and the ethical use of wealth. Sangram Adhyaya, strategies for conflict, diplomacy, alliances, and insistence that war must remain a last resort. Guna Prakaran, personal virtues such as compassion, restraint, patience, and non-cruelty as an essential trait of a ruler. So Somdev is not only offering a scattered moral sayings, but a coherent philosophy of governance that integrates ethics with pragmatics. Now, unlike Kautilya's Arthashastra, where Artha, like material prosperity and power, is often treated as a supreme goal of statecraft, Somdev subordinates Artha to Dharma. He explicitly states that king exists not for his own enjoyment, but the protection of subjects and sovereignty of justice. This text is deeply informed by Jain values, especially ahimsa. While Somdev does not naively deny the necessity of punishment or warfare, he insists that these be exercised with restraint and compassion. He warns against cruelty, excessive taxation, and arbitrary use of power. In another of his sayings, he remarks, when punishment is bound with truth, it exalts the king. Its purpose is to safeguard non-violence, not to inflict suffering. The king as a trustee. Somdev insistently portrays the king as a trustee of power, not its owner. He is accountable to dharma, to his subject, and to his own conscience. This contrasts with the Vedic conception of the kingship, which is divinely ordained as a part of cosmic order. Rita, for Somdev, legitimacy is moral, not metaphysical. Whereas Kautilya valorizes cunning strategies, espionage, and deception in politics, Somdev warns against the corrosion of trust such methods bring. He recommends careful discriminant viveka, patience, shama, and compassion, daya as royal virtues, elevating the king to the model of ethical leadership. Philosophical significance. It stands at the intersection of two streams, the pragmatic tradition of Niti Shastra and moral tradition of Jain ethics. Its significance lies in showing that political power can and must be disciplined by ethical principles. The work is neither as pragmatic as Arthashastra nor as worldly as pure religious text. Instead, it offers a middle path, acknowledging the realities of governance while insisting that they be framed within ethical limits. For a philosophical standpoint, Somdev's text advances the theory of ethical sovereignty. Sovereignty is never absolute. It is mediated by responsibility to dharma. The king is not a lawgiver in the modern sense, but a guardian of moral order that transcends him. In respect, Somdev's vision resonates with the Jain metaphysical outlook, where worldly authority is provisional, subject to higher truth. Now, here some concepts about justice and law, administration and ministers, war, diplomacy, non-violence, welfare and economics. Now, for justice and law, for Somdev, justice, nyaya, is the foundation of kingship. A ruler who abandons justice, ceases to be a legitimate king, becomes a tyrant, not merely a tool of governance, but a very telos of political life. By justice, he states, the king stands firm. By justice, the people are happy. A ruler devoid of justice descends towards hell, even while in this world. Here Somdev underscores the cosmic and karmic dimensions of justice. It sustains both worldly harmony and the ruler's spiritual destiny. Punishment as moral correction. Danda is necessary, but it must be reformatory rather than vindictive. Somdev insists that punishment should aim at restoring order and protecting non-violence, not at inflicting cruelty. The principle aligns with the Jain emphasis on compassion, daya, and non-cruelty. Unlike the Dharmashastric view where punishment is a divine duty of the king, Somdev interprets as a moral guardianship. A king must punish with reluctance and in proportion to the offense. He recognizes that kingship cannot be exercised in isolation. It requires wise counsel and an ethical administration. His discussion of ministers, mantrin, reflects both pragmatic consideration and Jain values. Qualities of ministers. Ministers must be chosen not for wealth or lineage, but for wisdom, integrity, and loyalty. He states, neither wealth nor birth can make one a minister. One endowed with virtue and purity of conduct becomes the king's trusted counselor. He elevates ethical character about cunningness, a sharp departure from Kautilya's acceptance of manipulation as political virtues. Ethics of counsel. Somdev also emphasizes the responsibility of ministers to speak truth to power. A counselor who flatters or misleads the king is morally culpable. By contrast, a wise minister is one who places dharma above expediency, reminding the ruler of his obligation to justice and compassion. Checks on royal authority. In Somdev's model, ministers act as check on arbitrary royal power. By placing moral responsibility on advisors, he implicitly advocates for shared governance, aligning with Jain suspicion of unchecked authority. The vision resonates with the Jain communal ethos, where decision making often took collective forms within monastic and lay councils. War, diplomacy, and nonviolence. One of the most challenging aspects of Jain political thought is reconciling nonviolent ahimsa with the realities of statecraft, often involving coercion and war. Somdev addresses this tension with remarkable nuance. War as the last resort. While acknowledging that war may sometimes be unavoidable, Somdev insists it must be the absolute last resort. He says, wise kings wage war only when patience has been exhausted, not for the destruction of beings, but for the protection of dharma. This represents a restrictive doctrine of warfare. Diplomacy and restraint. Somdev places higher emphasis, he does place higher emphasis on diplomacy, negotiation, and alliance rather than on military conquest. He warns against aggression driven by greed, as it generates negative karma and destabilizes kingdoms. Thus, the preferred instrument of statecraft are peaceful negotiation, treatises, and moral persuasion consistent with the Jain values. Ethics of victory. When victory is achieved, the king must avoid arrogance and cruelty. The conquered should be treated with dignity, not humiliation. Somdev thus anticipates the idea of restorative justice in political conflict, aligning with the Jain vision of compassion even towards adversaries. Welfare and economic ethics. Somdev extends Rajadharma beyond justice and defense to encompass the economic and social welfare of subjects. For him, prosperity must be ethically grounded, never exploitative. The king may levy taxes, but only moderately and proportionally. Excessive taxation is equated with theft. He states, excessive punishment, oppression, taxation, and oppressive taxation by kings are sinful. Such a ruler is no different from a thief. This echoes the Jain suspicion of greed, lobha, and underscores the duty of rulers to safeguard subjects from economic exploitation. Public welfare. He advocates the construction of public works, wells, rest houses, temples, shelters as act of punya, merit, that also enhances the welfare of subjects. The king's legitimacy grows not through conquest but through visible care for people. Here the Jain value of universal beneficence, Sarva Bhuta Hita, the welfare of all living beings, human beings and non-aligned, is reflected. Wealth as a trust. Wealth is in king's treasury is described not as a personal property but as a trust belonging to the people. Misuse of public funds is a grave violation of dharma. This trusteeship is necessary. Here, power and wealth are to be held in as trustees, as trust for the people. Synthesis, the ethical king. Across these domains, justice, administration, welfare, and warfare, Somdev consistently portrays king as an ethical steward. His power is legitimate only when subordinated to dharma, exercised with restraint, and directed towards the protection of life and flourishing of subjects. Now, of course, in Kautilya's vision, the king is a master strategist. Somdev's king is a guardian of non-violence and justice. Manu's is divine lawgiver. And unlike Buddhist Chakravartin, who wields universal dominion, Somdev's king is bound by principle of restraint. So, this articulation of Rajadharma represents not merely a political manual, but a philosophical attempt to harmonize power with ethics. It exemplifies the Jain conviction that worldly roles, even kingship, can be aligned with the higher spiritual goal of non-violence, provided they are guided by discipline, compassion, and justice. Now, of course, here, the basis of his Rajadharma, the philosophical basis is ahimsa, the param dharma, Now here he is redefining ahimsa not as literal abstention from all harm, but as a principle of minimizing violence and orienting towards the protection of life. Punishment of, for example, is justified only when it prevents greater harm and safeguards social order. Then, so here ahimsa is a restrictive way he has explained taxation to be exercised moderately, avoiding economic exploitation. Second, anekantvad, doctrine of non-one-sidedness and political prudence. Now, the principle of truth is many-sided and no single perspective captures reality. Of course, this is a metaphysical principle, but when primarily an epistemological doctrine, he adapts it into a principle of political prudence. A king, he suggests, must avoid absolutist judgment and cultivate intellectual humility. Decisions should be made by listening to multiple perspectives of ministers, subjects, and adversaries before arriving at policy. This mirrors the Jain conviction that reality is complex and wisdom arises from synthesizing diverse viewpoints. Aparigraha and the ethics of power. The third foundational principle, aparigraha, non-possessiveness, has profound implications for political authority. And Jainism teaches that attachment to possession binds the soul to samsara. For king, attachment manifests into greed for wealth, territory, or sensual pleasures. Somdev insists that ruler must renounce possessiveness, treating wealth and power, as mentioned earlier, not as personal assets, but as trust held on the behalf of people. Somdev also, he discourages conquest driven by greed. So possessiveness in kingship is a form of spiritual bondage. Renunciation, by contrast, elevates the king to moral authority. King and karma and the king's responsibility. Underlying these three principles is a Jain doctrine of karma, which frames kingship as a moral spiritual responsibility. Every act of governance, whether just or unjust, compassionate or cruel, binds karma to the soul of the ruler. Kingship is not merely a worldly office, but a site of spiritual consequence. Somdev repeatedly warns rulers that unjust acts, excessive punishment, exploitation, cruelty in war will lead to hellish births. Conversely, just governance aligned with dharma accuses punya that aids the ruler's spiritual progress. This karmic perspective makes Rajadharma not an ethical obligation to subjects, but also a path of self-discipline and spiritual accountability. So he's reinterpreting kingship as a form of lay asceticism. While the king cannot renounce the world, he can renounce cruelty, greed, and arrogance, thereby approximating the ascetic ideal within the political life. So to get taken all these three principles of ahimsa, anekantavad, and aparigraha together, the king will that will be the legitimate king. With this moral values according to Somdev. It is not merely a set of duties for efficient governance, but a spiritual discipline of rulership, where power is constantly checked by self-restraint, compassion, and humility. Now, a little bit of comparison, which we have done already, but 2-3 points. Both Kautilya and Somdev recognize the importance of wise counsel. Ministers play a critical role, and king must select them carefully. Yet beneath the surface some divergence. For Kautilya, the supreme goal is artha, the power and prosperity of state. For Somdev, it is dharma. Artha is subordinate to dharma. Kautilya justifies deception, espionage, and conquest as legitimate tools. Somdev condemns this act if they violate compassion, restraint, and truth. Now, in Dharma Shastra, especially Manusmriti and Yajnavalkya Smriti, provide another influential discourse on kingship. The king is portrayed as upholder of the Varnashram Dharma. The king's authority is religiously sanctioned, tied to the cosmic principle of Vrita and the Vedic law. Both traditions emphasize the king's role as a protector of subject, nyaya, justice, and both treat taxation and wealth as legitimate functions, provided they are exercised with restraint. For Manu, kingship is ordained by divine will to protect Varnashram order. For Somdev, legitimacy derives from moral accountability to dharma, not divine ordination. Manusmriti envisions king as a guardian of the the Vedic authority, enforcing the Varna duties and the privileges. Somdev ignores Varna consideration, offering a more universal approach of protection and welfare. Now, Buddhist and Somdev and the Buddhist Dharmaraja, both Buddhist and Jain models stress on non-violence, ethical restraint in governance. Both emphasize king's role as a protector of all beings, not merely subject. And the Buddhist Dharmaraja is grounded in Buddhist teaching of impermanence, anicca, anitya, compassion, and the middle way. Somdev's model is grounded, of course, in karma, ahimsa, and aparigra. More or less, they are similar, except for the metaphysical beliefs. In Buddhism, the Dharmaraj actively spreads the Buddhist Dharma. In Somdev's vision, the king does not proselytize Jainism, but governs universally according to the ethical principle of Dharma. Now, there are no doubt some limitations also. While inspiring, Somdev's philosophy is not without challenges when applied to modern context. His acceptance of limited violence may be seen too idealistic in the face of modern warfare and terrorism. His text does not directly address democratic participation or pluralism issues central to today's politics. As a medieval text, it presumes hierarchical social structures that are different from contemporary egalitarian aspiration. Yet these limitations does not undermine its relevance. They invite reinterpretation to draw principles while adapting their application to democratic and pluralistic context. Now, how can we make it relevant today? If we reframe Somdev's Rajdharma, it can be summarized in few points. Sovereignty is not absolute. Leaders must serve justice, not themselves. True power lies in restraint, not excess. Violence must be minimized, peace and dialogue prioritized. Governance must ensure the well-being of all beings, human and non-human. Restraint in possession and consumption must guide and it has to be ecologically responsible. Somdev's medieval insights speak directly to 21st century challenges, offering a model of leadership that balances realism with ethics. To conclude, it's not merely a manual for medieval kings. It is a philosophical vision for leadership as trusteeship, power as responsibility, and governance as service. In a world struggling with authoritarianism, violence, and ecological crisis, his chain synthesis of Niti and Dharma offers one paradigm. Leaders are custodians of Dharma, not owners of power. The enduring relevance of this teaching lies in insistence that politics without ethics is tyranny, while ethics without pragmatism is ineffectual. Somdev shows us a path that holds both together, a path urgently needed today. With this, I end my talk here. Once again, I thank everybody for listening, and Indic Academy and Dr. Nagaraj for giving me a chance to present my views here. Thank you so much.
Let us check if there are questions. You may also be able to check, Kamini ji. There are, sir, please share the presentation. Ma'am, Chaudhary Gautam Prabhakar Bhai.
Yeah. So I also have this conflicting theories
Let
that
us read,
Somdev.
for the benefit of the audience, let us read the question first.
Yeah.
Ma'am, could you please confirm the source of your lecture, which mentions Somadeva Suri
Yeah.
belonged to Shvetambara tradition, as you
Tradition.
said? Because I find online sources such as Wisdom Library and
Yeah.
Wikipedia stating that he was a Digambara Jain monk from South India who lived around 959 to 966 CE. This is the question. Unless the
Yes.
audience understand the question, they may not be
Yes.
able to understand your answer. So please go ahead now, please.
So there are two books. One is the Ramchandra Malaviya's book published from Chaukhamba, and one is the Sundarlal Shastri Digambar volume from the Digambar text. So there are these conflicting things whether he was a Shvetambar or a Digambar monk, and I should have mentioned that. But yes, so thank you for correcting that part. It is still not confirmed whether he was a Shvetambar or Digambar. More of it I read was a Shvetambar, but I will still confirm it once again from trying to confirm from other sources also.
Your co-panelist Kanagaraj is asking you, in the Jain political thought, war is accepted or not? Death punishment is acceptable to it?
Well, looking into now, this is the whole paradox within the Jain tradition. As a Jain, there are two things. For ascetics, complete no, but as a lay follower, minimal himsa is allowed. Now, what kind of minimal himsa? So in that context, yes, because many kings, the Jain community was a Kshatriya community. I mean, the Tirthankars were Kshatriyas. And later on, you have the kings from various dynasties also who were following Jainism, but also participated in the war. Therefore, Somdev must have found it necessary to write this treatise as to warning to what extent the war must be resorted to, when it has to be resorted to. So for ascetic, it is a complete no, but for the lay followers, the Stravakas, with a restraint, there is the war. Non-violence in the absolute way is definitely difficult for lay followers here. But for the king, yes. Therefore, you will see many, not many Jains today in, armed forces or any of the, you can say the defense forces. You will have hardly countable, not, counting on your fingers, the Jains participate in such activities or such businesses, also keeping in the principle of non-violence. That does not mean they are not committed to the law of the land, but is it in a different way?
So I think that is answered, and there are questions from Shruti Jainji. In which source is it written that Somadeva was Digambar or Shvetambar monk?
Yeah, as I
That
have
question,
just
I think, is already addressed. How
yes.
can we, there is anonymous attendee, how can we see Somdev's principles in contemporary Indian scenario? Say, same anonymous attendee it could be or some other, but another anonymous attendee is there. Ma'am, were there any moral financial frameworks set by Somdev in situations like excess tariffs set by neighborhood states? There is the name also at the end, Ruturaj Doshi. Ruturaj Doshi is asking the question.
You can Somdev's principle in contemporary Indian scenario, you can see the strike with precision in Operation Sindoor. It did not target, we did not went on a reckless war, as Somdev has suggested, only as a last resort. And that also how the attacks were carried out with precision, destroying that which were harmful to us or from where the harm was there, not attacking the civilians, as we got to know first. And secondly, No, the taxations and all these set were in the so excessive tariff by neighborhood states. This is he has written a treatise wherever he was. So it was looking into the Indian context. In the sense, at that time there were in 11th century, 9th, 10th, 11th century. Of course, you have the monarchies. So it was related to the monarchical setup, and it would have been applicable in the monarchical setup. What is happening in the other states or other countries was not mentioned in the Somdev's text. Like today, maybe you are addressing how today's the issue of tariffs, what the tariff war is going on. So no.
Okay, so I think all questions are answered, and we have now the